Steeler Fury. SteelerFury.com.
Hey, you're listening to a bonus episode of the pre-draft extravaganza series for the Pittsburgh Steelers show on the SteelerFury.com podcast. We like to get a special guest each year, someone who is going through the draft process himself, a draft prospect interview, and that's what you're about to hear in this bonus episode. Without further ado, here we go. Hello and welcome again to another exciting edition of the Pittsburgh Steelers show on the SteelerFury.com podcast. This has been an amazing week of episodes about the NFL draft and the Steelers' needs and just the NFL draft in general. And I know I promised you 5 episodes this week, and we've already given you 5. This is a bonus episode, number 6, because we have a chance to talk with someone who's actually in the draft and going through the draft process, and is a prospect that I like very much. I recently awarded him something, which we'll talk about in a second. I know it's the biggest honor he's ever had in his entire career. We have with us edge rusher from the Air Force Academy, Bo Richter. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great. Doing amazing. Glad you have me on.
And I realize you probably taking time out of the process of all the stuff you're supposed to be doing to get ready for workouts and meetings and everything else. I'm sure you had stuff going on, so I appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, first of all, when I mentioned that you won an award, every year I do for like 20 years now, since like almost before you were born, a list of prospects that are kind of from a smaller school or an undervalued prospect for the NFL draft. That's kind of become my thing that some people know me for, and so especially the last few years, it got more and more elaborate and started giving out best in this conference or this style of player with some special specialty awards. And I have one every year I give out that's called the Basically Unwanted to the NFL award. And I know in your case, you were not somebody that, the Tennessees and Alabamas and Georgias of the world were saying, please come to us. And now, those same people, I'm sure they look back at your career and they're just like, oh, we probably could have used a guy like that. Tell us a little bit about where you started, in where you grew up and in your experience in high school and how you got started with recruiting and all that.
Yeah, so I had one of the more interesting journeys, I'd say. I grew up in Naperville, Illinois. I went to Naperville North High School there in Naperville, about an hour southwest of Chicago. All my young life, I was a basketball player. I didn't play football. I was getting looked at to play basketball in college, mostly low major interest. It wasn't as big as my football interest, but going into my sophomore year, or I guess going into my junior year, that summer, I decided to start doing the football team workouts that summer, and just to get another workout in, get prepared to play basketball, bigger, faster, stronger, the deal. So then I did that, and I kind of just that morphed into me playing that season on the football team. So a lot of my friends played, so it kind of just made sense for me to do it too. So I actually transitioned. I had played basketball my whole life, and that was what I wanted to do. And then I ended up loving football, and I ended up transitioning from only basketball to playing lacrosse and football, and no longer playing basketball just because I felt like I had better opportunities in the other two sports. So started playing football my junior year, played my junior, senior year football and lacrosse, and then started getting recruited. I was not, I wasn't one of those guys, obviously, that had the pleasure of playing, freshman, sophomore year and started the recruiting process there. And so I kind of started late, and I did not get as much interest. Most of my interest was, MAC, Ivy League, Patriot League, schools like that. And then Air Force came in, and I had the grades and all that, and I wanted to find a place that was going to give me an opportunity to play good football. And also, the playing professional ball was always in the back of my mind. It was always something I was striving towards, but I wanted to, cover my tracks and get a degree that was worth something. So I decided on Air Force because it was not only did it give you a clear career path after college, but it also gave you a great degree that that holds weight, and most circles and when in the hiring process. So I'm excited to use that down the line. Hopefully not soon. Um, but uh, but yeah, that was kind of my process. And then once I got to Air Force, it was kind of the same thing. I was a not one of the guys who came in that was a highly touted recruit coming into the class. So I had to kind of battle my way. I originally was recruited as an inside linebacker. I played that freshman and sophomore year, and then I started a couple of games as sophomore year as an inside backer, and most of the year I had backed up one of our first team all conference inside backers that year, and then the next year I was kind of flip flop. They flipped me about around a bunch of different positions. I played inside backer, outside backer. I started a couple games at 4 point stance, defensive end. Um, so yeah, I kind of was the jack of all, master of none my junior year, and they kind of threw me around as the team needed, which I was happy to do. I was happy to do what the team needed and fill in some roles that were lacking in the injury department or for whatever reason. And then going into my senior year, I finally kind of found my home there on the edge. I was always kind of natural with pass rushing, so it came pretty easily to me once I kind of transitioned over to that. And yeah, so then I kind of just found my home, and there it is. Most of my production came this last year, and that's kind of how it went.
Yeah, well, it feels like well, perfect for a service academy. Whatever it takes, right? You
Yeah,
do the
absolutely.
jobs you do, but and whatever they ask you to do. But also, I feel like those experiences playing different positions. I don't know. I mean, a very much lower level experience playing football than you, but playing different positions, I feel like you learn the game a little bit differently, so that whenever you find the spot that actually works for you, you incorporate a little bit of that knowledge about other things, probably. So
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helped me kind of understand the defense at a higher level. We went through a defensive coordinator change after my sophomore year, but the system was still similar enough, so I was able to use my knowledge from the multiple positions to inform my decisions at whatever position I was playing. Just because it's easy to figure out where you're doing if you know what everybody around you is doing.
yeah,
So yeah, I think, and I think also a lot of people have this privilege, but for different reasons. I think it was good seeing the different styles of coaching because I was coached by it ended up being five different coaches through my career. It ended up being four positions. If you count both inside linebacker positions as one position, but I bounced around and it was good because I figured out what coaching styles work for me, and if it didn't work for me, I figured out how to work in and translate. If what the coach was saying wasn't making a ton of sense to me, I kind of had that translator on to where I could make it make sense.
well, that's funny. That's a little bit like the position switching, right? You also learn a lot by having different coaches because not only the different styles, which is a thing, right? Because
Yeah,
not a lot of coaches in any sport are the type that are really special who can deal with any kind of player, any kind of scheme, and they're just natural born coaches, right? Most coaches are like, I know how to do this thing in a certain way, and I'm going to try to help you fit into that the best you can.
right, right.
But still, you pick up a little something from each of them, and you learn how to deal with people. That's just that's something that will serve you well in life. As I can tell you, as a 60-year-old person, that's one of the skills that like I'm sure there's plenty of things at a service academy and playing on a football team that have been great for your in your degree that will help you with your life. But those kind of skills with it, being part of a team, and I always feel like playing defense, different kind of person than plays offense. Like you can't play defense without being like somebody that has their hand in the pile and cares about what everybody else is doing and like to not let your team down. I feel like offensive guys, no offense, but there's a little bit more of like, it's about me and I do my thing and whatever.
Yeah, I think with skill positions, that's definitely true on the offensive side of the ball.
Is that, here's the question. Is that true at the service academies? Is that true at, like,
Yeah, I
it
mean, I
exists
would
elsewhere for sure, but I don't know about.
definitely, I mean, especially running an option package that you definitely have to rely on other people, even as a skill position guy.
Yeah,
But I think, when you get to the outside receivers and stuff like that, you need to have a little bit of cockiness to you. It's kind of like, I mean, even on defense, if to be a good corner, you can't be you can't have people walking all over you. You need to have a little bit of swagger to you and stuff like
yeah.
that. So I think it kind of comes with the territory at some of those spots.
Yeah, I dig that. I mean, I just think it's defense is more fun because it's more of a challenge to figure out how to work with a team in a way.
Yeah,
And it's true, running triple option is a little bit like the same thing. It's like all the pieces have to work. If one piece doesn't work, a run play doesn't work right. I mean,
yeah,
it's
definitely.
totally like that. And same with defense. One weak spot, somebody doesn't hit their gap, whatever, right? So
Yeah,
you mentioned, hopefully that, not for a while that you'll have to face your service commitment, not face it, but that you'll get on with that part of
yeah,
your life.
yeah, sure.
This is a big year that most people don't realize, or many people don't realize. I guess this is the last year amongst the last class of people in the service academies before it goes back to, there won't be this out if you go to professional sports that you'll have to go straight into your service.
Yeah, so after this year, it's kind of reverting back to an older legislation,
Yeah.
to where you will do everyone has a 5 year service commitment. So in the new legislation, you'll be able to go in and serve 2 years on active duty before switching to a reserve role. And in a reserve capacity, then it's a lot more flexible, your services. So really, you can basically just I mean, it's kind of like working two jobs in two separate times of the year. So you'll be playing football, whenever that commitment is there, and then whenever you're free, whether it's weekends or the off season, then you'll be fulfilling your reserve commitment to the Air Force. And me and Trey Taylor are our safety. I don't know if you've seen a lot of
Yeah.
him, but
I'm going to ask you about him, right? Yeah.
yeah. I mean, we're both we're kind of waiting until stuff gets a little bit more cemented and we're set on whatever teams we land on. But we would like to kind of try to take steps in the right direction and have the Department of Defense and the military try to use us a little bit more in the PR side of things and let us prove our worth as potential professional athletes to allow us as a marketing tool for the services. Wear our military uniform sometimes when we're on TV potentially. There are a lot of options to create more more PR for the United States military when you're on a stage like this. So I think depending on where things go, you could see a little bit more of that, and hopefully down the line the legislation can change and guys will have this opportunity, because I do think it's valuable, not just for us to be able to take the opportunity, but for the Air Force and for the U.S. military to use us as a recruiting tool.
Yeah. No, I grew up, of course, in an era when there was no deferment of your service. So, for instance, my childhood friend, it was way before your time, but my childhood friend that I grew up with in my neighborhood was the sort of the beneficiary. David Robinson, of course, the most famous example maybe of someone at service academies who was the number one pick in the NBA draft. Well, he couldn't play immediately. So Armand Gilliam, who I grew up with, was player from UNLV, who was the next player chosen. So he became, the top player that year. So for a year, he got the attention that someone else might have gotten. But it
Yeah,
was like it just doesn't. It never really made that much sense to me. I always felt like, okay, what's your goal? Your goal is to promote some really excellent people to come to the service academies and to promote the idea of serving as more than just grunt work, and to promote the idea of that you have good athletes and you're good teammates and you guys are the ultimate kind of professional team should be interested in people from the service academies with talent, because a lot of the discipline that they require to be a professional athlete, you guys have always sort of built into your life. I'm
yeah, absolutely.
generalizing. I'm sure not everybody's like that, but it sure seems like it. So it always
Yeah.
felt it always felt sort of dumb to me, that I mean, not dumb. I'm sorry, I don't want to knock it, but because I understand the reasoning, but it just wasn't.
I think uninformed is a better word. I think arguing against it, I feel like it was just a little bit uninformed, because not only obviously I think it'll help recruiting for football to be able to get guys knowing that they'll have a chance to go to the NFL. And I think not only do I think you can get a lot of very quality leaders, and not just in football, but coming out of collegiate athletics. I think collegiate athletics really is the best preparation for mission oriented leadership, like they have in the U.S. military. Like you all have a common goal, and really the stakes are a lot higher than if you're in some club or something like that, some other exercising your leadership in a place where people are not as invested as they are, like they are on active duty in the U.S. military, because it's, the stakes are as high as they get there. And I think other than, life and death like they're in, the next best thing to practice, serious leadership skills is in a professional athletic scenario. So I think that's, I think it would be a little bit, I think it would be a waste not to try to have more of those people come to the academies and be in the U.S. military.
Absolutely. And they don't need David Robinson in a submarine anyway.
Yeah, he's a little bit big for a submarine.
Yeah, that works so well. Yeah, so you mentioned your teammate Trey Taylor. Give us your scouting report on Trey Taylor as a potential NFL prospect. What would you say?
I think he's his name's all over the place, but I think even with that, I think he's still a little bit underhyped. I think he's one of those guys that at the very minimum he's going to be an immediate special teams contributor. He's a super good athlete. He's big and he's strong. His in his athletic profile, his strength jumps off the charts. And I think he's a great player. I think his man coverage ability gets slept on a little bit. I think that's a lot of people are considering that one of his weak points, but I think people will come to realize quickly that he can stick to guys easily, and he's a really smart football player, and he's an instinctive player who's he's a playmaker. So coming from a biased source, that's my scouting report on him.
Would you characterize him as a split field guy, strong safety in the box, an alley defender? Like, what do you think his role will end up being in?
He can definitely fill the box. I think he checks all the boxes in terms of NFL safeties. I think he could play. I think he can play safety. I think he could. He can do whatever you need him to do. He can fill the box very, very well. He's a hard hitter. But I think honestly, wherever you stick him, he's going to be productive.
So about you mentioned he's a great athlete. Your athletic testing, I think. I believe I read something. Maybe I'm wrong. That you even surprised yourself in terms of the kind of athlete the kind of athletic performance you put in testing. You had a crazy. We have 40-inch vertical jump or something like that. And you're like 240-ish, right? Something like that.
Yeah, I was 248 at Pro Day. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not nothing, man. That's a lot of mass to move up. I guess it's appropriate that you're in the Air Force.
Yeah, sure.
Flying object, very large. You're fit. I work on, I follow Pittsburgh Steelers, so we've had this, for such a long time now, the 3-4 kind of base defense. Although, the way the NFL is, there's not much base defense anymore. It's all nickel.
Yeah,
but
sure.
Those the idea of the stand-up outside linebackers who we used to call, used to be able to get our choice of the tweener guys that were, a little bit too small to be a defensive end with their hand in the dirt, and then a little bit too big to be really an off-ball linebacker. And you'd be like, well, you put that guy on the edge and set him after the quarterback, and that worked really well for us. But then the other teams caught on, and now it's like a real challenge to find that type. But you seem like everybody's looking for something slightly different, an outside linebacker, edge rusher. But it feels like you're in a good spot where, there's basically two types of people that generally work. One is, super long and very bendy. And then there's the guys with sort of a little bit more compact with a lot of power in your draft, in your rush. And I kind of feel like you fit in more of that category. And I'm going to throw a name at you, James Harrison. Is that type where you get under the taller guys' pads and you have the power to, even if they outreach you, you have the power to get through them, it seems like. What do you consider to be your strengths as an edge rusher?
Yeah, I think that James Harrison was a very big guy. I think his rush profile definitely was very power based. I think with me, I would say my rushes are all my rushes. I think are predicated on speed and winning edges. And I think short. I did an interview yesterday. I just think that twitch and the make you miss ability, I think is my strength. I think I have short area quickness and explosiveness, so I can make guys miss. And I think I do still have that power. And our coach a lot of times uses it as a way to make fun of the short guys. But natural leverage is a real thing. You can get under guys' pad levels and really lift guys and make them move. But I think generally my ability to win rushes is definitely predicated on twitch and speed and finesse, I guess is what you would call it. But I think twitch would be a good word, I think.
Well, I like how you use the threat of because your first step, like your quickness, first two steps, I like to say for someone like you,
Yeah.
is a threat to guys that have trouble getting in their pass sets, to the point where once you figure that out, that they're a little bit afraid of you beating them on the edge, then you have this counter to be able to come back and
Yeah, absolutely. If they're afraid of your speed, they just open the can to any move. If they're worried about getting busting edges, you're going to be able to beat them however you want. So I think predicating rushes with speed, I think that's one thing that we were coached to do. Speed is how you set up every single pass rush move. You got to get these guys scared of your speed. So I think that's what I've tried to do, and I think I've been relatively successful and ready to hone the craft.
And as I recall, also you ran a very fast 40. I can't remember the exact number now, but I'm sure you've got a tattoo already.
Yeah, I ran 4.56 was the consensus time. Me and my trainer, as upset as you can be at a 4.56, we were ready to run mid 4.4s the whole training block. So It was a little upsetting not to hit that number, but it is what it is, and 4.56 is going to get me guys to look back at the film, and that's really all it takes is guys to check out the film.
Oh no, believe me, it's still plenty fast. And I know you won't say it because you're not about excuses, but I think you had a little hamstring tweak or something that I heard
that definitely played a little part too.
Yeah, so it's like you just the day you train for for months and months. It's like some days you have a really great perfect day that day, and some days it's like only okay. So nobody's looking at that and thinking, you'll never do that again the rest of your life. It's more like, oh, that's a really good athlete. He's got speed and quickness and explosion, and and like you said, most importantly, to go back and look at the tape and see what you did.
Tape doesn't lie.
And how it really, your opportunity and how you dealt with it this year really came together. So that part's wonderful. You have a Pittsburgh Steelers connection. That's the thing I forgot to mention earlier. Your uncle Kent Graham, I'm sure he had actually pretty nice career overall in the NFL and had some good times with the Giants. His year in Pittsburgh, not the best part of his career. He got hurt. It was like a lot of bad stuff. But I'm sure that you have had a chance to talk to him a little bit about the experience of playing in the NFL.
Yeah, he's been a great mentor and just kind of coaching me through the process. And he's one of those guys where he'll be as involved as you want him to, and he'll never overstep. He'll ask your permission. Do you want me to call this guy? Do you want me to do this and that? And so he's been a fantastic resource and to me, and just anything that I need from him, I know he's willing to do for me, and I love him for that. And he's, I think that the best thing you can say about him is he's been fantastic in this process. And obviously growing up, it was, you looked up to a guy like that, not just because, he's a massive human being. I think he's
big guy,
6'5" or 6'6". He's just a huge guy. And his family's been super good to me, and all my cousins and my aunt, they're awesome. So I think they've been an awesome resource.
So in this process is concerned, tell us just a little bit about, you don't have to go too much longer, but since you got finished playing at Air Force. I did have one Air Force question for you. And that was, I noticed something strange about your game logs. And that was what the kind of days you put up against the other service academies. And I'm sure this is something that you would enjoy mentioning for a second. Yeah,
So here's just I'd love to say it's just they light a fire in me, which they absolutely do. But so we like to load the box heavy in those games. It's a run first game. Everybody knows that. So a lot of times we'll take a guy and I provided a little bit of versatility. So in that I was an off ball backer. The beginning of my career. So moving to we run a 4-3, but it really, we have it's a nickel and then a bandit, which is basically what I did, which is just an edge. So I would probably call it more of a 4-2-5. But when you get into those games, it really is a true 4-3 where we move It's either a defensive end. This year we moved our defensive end to my position, which is that outside linebacker, that rush edge, and then we moved me to what it was our nickel, and then in this package is the spur. And then we just take a basically an interior D lineman and put him at defensive end on the strong side. So going against those teams and playing that spur position, there's a lot of action and a lot of opportunity to make plays. So I'd say, I'd love to say it's just me, but that's a focal point in our defense that, especially in those service academies, has a lot of opportunity to make plays. So I think that's a big reason for the success there. I mean, you look back in the history books, Vince Sanford, who was a first team all conference outside backer the past 2 years, not this past year, but the 2 previous years. He played the position the previous year, and he had monster games, the 2 service academy games as well. So that's just kind of, you never expect success, but that position gives a lot of opportunities to make plays. So that's where that came from.
Yeah, but you made him. But you have like 4 or 5 tackles for loss, I think.
Navy was definitely a good game. Army, I don't even want to talk about what happened at Army, but there was a lot of production there too. You just wish maybe you were on the field less to get less production.
Yeah, there is that too. Yeah, I was going to ask you. You sort of helped me answer that question, but just quickly, your run in the scheme that you guys ran normally. What were your responsibilities in the run game? Because this is a thing that is underrated, I think, about edge players. Everybody wants to talk about their pass rushing skills and so on and so forth. But what do you think is, the best traits that you have in terms of run defense, and what were you asked to do? Did you have, gap?
Well, I mean, just getting past setting edges and stuff like that. We in all of our base stuff, we ran our edges spilled. We were spill pullers, spill slicers, and all that stuff. And I think my job really was to alleviate stress from our backers, because I think in especially in a defense like ours, the defense is going to be successful when the inside linebackers are making the most plays. So my job was, obviously, if a play presented itself, go make the play. But my job was to whoop the tackle and make sure he doesn't get to the second level. And I think that's something that a lot of people, a little nuance that a lot of people don't understand. A lot of teams out there will send pullers and any blockers coming across the formation. They'll box it and they'll send it back to the interior of the formation, where we would spill it, and then we allow our linebackers to scrape over the top. And where I think that gives us an advantage is when you're boxing a puller or a slicer, you're giving that tackle free rein to go climb to the second level and wall up your frontside backer. So in our system, we're not going and setting the edge. We're getting heavy hands on that tackle and not allowing him to climb to the second level. And a lot of times, if you do that well enough, you can kind of hide from that blocker and then go make plays. And I had a couple of those this season that ended up being TFLs for me. But when it wasn't, and then that blocker came to and it ended up being a double team on me, it was like shooting fish in a barrel for our weak side backer, because our job up front is to take up as many blockers as you can so other guys can make plays. So I think that's what I was asked to do. When it comes to third down, hunt that quarterback, and that's the name of the game. But first and second down is how you get to third down. So you gotta dominate the run game and take up blockers so that other guys can make plays. And then when plays present themselves to you, you got to make them. So I think that's the gist of what I was asked to do this year.
Cool. No, that actually is a really good description of the difference between just setting the edge and having the responsibility to be, sounds like, more two gapping, where you're trying to occupy that guy and be ready to make a play, but you're mostly occupying him so that your scrapers got time to come. I like that.
Yeah, definitely.
That seems like a more sophisticated way of dealing with playing edge. So that's probably will serve you well. So in terms of the postseason, that's where I was getting to before. So, what was your journey like, and what things did you, what were the best parts of that? What were the hardest parts?
It was definitely moving into like a more combine style of training. It was definitely interesting. It was something that I had not really done before. It was definitely new. I was training at a facility called Atlet in Midlothian, Texas, about 40 minutes south of Dallas. And they were amazing. Ryan, the head trainer there, he's an amazing guy, and he works with athletes really well. And we had a really, really good group working with there. We had CJ Getz, who kind of played more my position from Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Aaron Brule, who started off at Mississippi State and then finished up his career at Michigan State. And a bunch of other guys. We had Byron Bonds, the edge from Baylor. Just the guys that I was training with that were kind of my position.
Mm-hmm.
That I was training with to kind of tailor the training to our body types. And we had a couple other guys, big names at other positions, but we had a great group. Long story short, they push me really well, and when you got guys who are elite athletes, they're pushing you because everybody wants to be the top dog. So
Yeah.
you see guys putting up big numbers, you got to go do it yourself too. So I think that was new. I think honestly, I having never trained explosive, I've trained explosive movements before, but training explosive movements, it was almost more like a track workout. You're trying to get super explosive in your sprint get offs. It's not a pass rush get off, it's a sprint get off. And training all that stuff. And I think that helped, it trained some muscle groups that weren't necessarily as developed, and it allowed me to kind of, put some inches on the vertical leap, shave some seconds off the 40. So, it was all very positive. I super enjoyed it. And I think, Ryan and his staff did a great job down there at Outlet.
Yeah, it's like the workout numbers that you posted are actually a little bit more impressive in a way because you didn't go to a place where you were in some kind of program where no knock against your program, but where they're gearing you towards your your combine result testing from like the time you arrive on campus. Like I think a place like Penn State, they have an incredible program and guys that aren't even really top, elite athlete, outlier athletes test like, at least elite athletes. Like you can't.
Yeah, and I think just going off that, our staff, I think at Air Force, I think that they're phenomenal. Coach Getty has a great staff, but we train football. We don't train combine there, which I think is exactly what you need out of a strength and conditioning coach in college. But I think you're absolutely right. Some programs are better than others at producing combine guys.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily always translate into something else. It is true for edge rushers in general, though. You have to sort of hit some kind of a bar before people will pay attention to you. So that's, in your case, the work you did really paid off, I think. I hope. So in terms of visits with teams, or you didn't go to the combine. So how did you get some attention from teams? Are you allowed to talk about anybody that you talked with or that you enjoyed meeting with?
Yeah, I met with several teams at Pro Day, and Pro Day I think is kind of where everything started taking off. I've talked to a lot of teams, especially these past 2 weeks. I've been getting a couple calls a day and a couple texts and just info requests from teams and stuff like that. I'd say I think at this point I've talked to between Pro Day and then just like phone calls and meetings and stuff like that. I think I'm up to almost 20 teams. So yeah, I mean, the interest has been good. I haven't heard from the Steelers yet, maybe in the next couple of days, hopefully. But yeah, I mean, the interest has been growing. And it's good to see, in the past month and a half, probably about a month, I haven't done a whole lot. I'm not putting more film out. That's all been there, and I'm not testing any new numbers, and my interest seems to grow. So I think that's, it's good that my name's being tossed around and guys continue to circle back to my film.
Sure.
So I think, when you're not doing anything and your stock's going up, you did something right previously. So I think, sitting around and getting calls and meeting with new teams when you're not doing anything is awesome.
No, it's great. I mean, really, that's great for you. I think they're it's not that unnatural for even big organizations like NFL teams who have giant scouting departments and budgets and whatever, that they put you in sort of a category to start off with, and you have to work your way out of it. And if you're a 5-star recruit, you have to work your way out of it for them to not still view you as being a top prospect. If you start off as a 0-star recruit, you got to really bounce before they forced to take attention. So
I think being a service academy guy, I've said this several times in this process. You have to work your way out of the stigma. Especially, I mean, I think Pro Day is the best way to do it. Film matters, absolutely, but you need to get out of that, unathletic service academy guy stigma.
Yeah.
And I think, I think, first of all, I think we have a lot better athletes than people give us credit for, just generally.
Most definitely. Yeah.
But you definitely got to work your way out of the mud in terms of people regarding your athleticism.
Oh, yeah.
So putting up big numbers at pro day was important to me, just to get rid of that kind of classification on my draft status.
Do you have ever any conversation with the guy from the linebacker from Army? It's another guy that I think this year is, like you said, proving that there are not only athletes there, but like real prospects.
I talked to Leo Lowen. I talked to him a little bit. Yeah, I have. He's a great guy. I met him at the CGS earlier this year, and he's a great guy. It's nice to talk about shared experiences with another service academy guy. So I really hope he gets an opportunity. He had a monster game against us, unfortunately.
Yeah.
In the Air Force Army game, he wreaked some havoc in there. So he's a great player and a great guy. I think I anticipate him having some success if he gets an opportunity.
Before I let you go, you mentioned CGS, the College Gridiron Showcase. This is something that I think even people who follow the draft pretty closely are not all that familiar with, because it's not super publicized, but there's no game that's on television that everybody can see. There was to clue in, but I think it's really useful for not only for prospects, for like a prospect like you to go and test yourself against other guys that are sort of leveling up a little bit, and I'm guessing that you probably got something really good out of that experience and some attention. What was your experience like at CGS?
It was very good. I think, just first of all, I think you can absolutely tell right when the guys come up and start talking at the beginning of the event. Those guys care about getting attention on lower prospects. Those guys care about your journey, and they care about you personally, which I think is really, really cool. They don't think they're too good for anybody at that camp, which is I think is just a great trait as a person. But yeah, I think I was a little bit. I had high expectations for the levels of competition. I think it was less than I thought it would be. I didn't, especially working the edge stuff. I didn't feel like I really had any trouble in the one-on-ones or anything like that. I felt like I won most of my reps pretty decisively, which you shouldn't be able to do if you're going up against guys that are really good. And that's not to say there weren't good players there, but I had really high expectations, just because these guys are all have expectations to go to the NFL, and I think some of the guys, you just kind of get exposed at those events, and the cream rises to the top, and then the whatever goes to the bottom goes to the bottom.
Sure.
But
and I imagine, I don't know off the top of my head who you were facing there, but sometimes it's smaller school guys, and it's just seeing the jump up in competition. It doesn't mean they can't raise to that level, but I'm sure the first time you play against somebody that's like, wow, like this is not what I'm used to seeing in my career, that's got to be a tough adjustment for anybody.
Yeah. I mean, I think that the tackles in the Mountain West are underrated. I think first of all, I think we produce some good edge guys. I like to think that Mo Kamara has risen up draft boards.
Yeah.
He's a really good athlete, and I like to think that I'm a little bit more comparable to him. I just don't have as consistent production as him, because he's been a great player for a really long time for them.
Yeah.
And I think if I had been afforded the opportunity to play as long as he was, I feel like I would have been in the same ballpark as him. But I am where I am, and they're, needless to say, they're great players. Boise has a bunch of good D linemen and pass rushers, and obviously Mo Kamara is a good player, and there's a bunch of other good pass rushers in the Mountain West that these tackles have to deal with. And I think Frank Crum from Wyoming is just one of the names.
Yeah.
In the past, Boise's had some really. I know last year Boise had a really, really good tackle, who obviously physically he was great, but just as the leader of their offensive line, you could just tell. I mean, this guy's in charge, and you don't really see a tackle in charge of the offensive line very often.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the tackles in the Mountain West are good, and I played against some big guys. I mean, I think I played against 3 or 4 guys in my career that were 6'10" or 6'9", and these guys are big and long, and they can play. So I'm not necessarily worried about going up against somebody who's bigger or longer than I'm used to. I feel like I've seen a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I just feel like the whole edge and tackle game, outside tackle game in the NFL is like a different. It's like its own super league, you know.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I
like
mean,
you get,
there are some freaks in the NFL playing the edge, and there are some really freaky, really big guys playing tackle there. That guys that big shouldn't be able to move that well.
no, man, it's and you see it up close. It's one thing to see it on television, but you see even guys that are sort of, you know, prospects, you know, sort of the tail end of the draft, guys that may have successful careers eventually, but like aren't even like the superstars. And you see those guys up close on a practice field, and you just think like, wow, like
Yeah,
that's unnatural, as you said. It just
yeah,
personally
yeah.
shouldn't be moving like that. And I can't even imagine having the job of like, oh man, I got to beat that guy. All right, you know, like let me figure it out. Yeah, because I know
Yeah.
like there's something to be said for being I mean, in a way, life is a lot easier when you're the best athlete and the biggest guy. So if you're not always the best and the whatever, then that kind of shows something too. You know, I feel like that's a good place for you showing your stuff. Well, I really appreciate having you first of all on the draft. I mean, on our show and having you in this draft class to talk about. Just I guess the last thing is, what do you expect will happen? What are your expectations for yourself in terms of what happens over the course of next week and the next couple of months? And where's the spot for you, the landing spot and the role you feel like you can excel at and you're going to be successful?
Well, just in terms of the draft, I that's kind of out of my hands at this point. I'm excited to see where I'll land. Just I feel like I'm in the same boat as everyone watching. Nobody knows. No, even the GMs probably aren't sure where their cards are going to fall
Yeah.
come draft day. But yeah, I mean, I think in terms of what my role will be, special teams will be my ticket. I can't wait to go play special teams. I absolutely love running down on kickoff and punt and all the special teams. I think they're a great opportunity to kind of show what you're made of and showcase some athleticism and some playmaking ability. I have no expectations going into camp other than me putting my best foot forward and that's showing what I can do and seeing what people think. I think people will be surprised. I think even as my stock goes up, I think I'm definitely a guy who's gonna. I hope to overperform when it comes to time. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited, and I think the road is there's a lot of opportunity on the road ahead, and especially in the next 4 months.
I hope so, man. What was your degree in that you earned?
I got a bachelor's in science and business management.
Well, that sounds like something that there's always a way to use that.
Yeah, definitely broad.
Yeah, well, it worked, but I mean, that's a not unimportant thing, and that's people skills. That thing where you learn how to deal with the coaches and deal with your teammates and whatever. Like that sounds like a good pair to go with that. So anyway,
Yeah, definitely.
well, Bo Richter, ladies and gentlemen, Air Force Academy, soon to be somewhere in a professional football team, and I suspect guys like you, when you come in, will surprise. Like you said, that element of surprise of like, I don't know who this guy is, and then you show up and you're like, wow, like he works and he plays great, and you're
Yeah, absolutely.
somebody to be
I
reckoned
appreciate you
with.
having me on.
It's a good spot to be in. It's better than being so many expectations, and then you come in, and if you're not perfect immediately as a rookie, which no one will be, that's hard too. So anyway,
Yeah.
I totally thank you again and wish you the best. I'm now I have a rooting interest in your success. The Steelers do have a little bit of a need for some outside linebacker depth. So even though they have some pretty good ones, there's never enough.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be blessed to be a part of the team.
Well, if maybe sometime we'll catch up with you when you get to the next step of your journey, and we can hear about how it really went.
Yeah. We can look back on this and see how the chips actually fell.
Yeah, exactly. And and you'll be on the if somebody puts you on a team, and in the NFL you'll be on the basketball team. Sounds like for them, which it's not a small thing. The charity basketball team that goes with it. Anyway, appreciate it, Bo. Thanks a lot for your time.
Yep. Thank you.
Good luck to you.
Thanks a lot for listening. Make sure to hit the like button and or subscribe so you never miss seeing our content. And with that, that's it for the pre-draft extravaganza. We'll catch you after the draft on the SteelerFury.com podcast.
Steeler Fury.